But first of all, I want to go back to the intriguing story of the man that stole the plane in Rhinana just during the Second World War with the intention of flying to assist the Germans. And we had been hearing little bits and pieces about him around the place, and we were really, really anxious to find out what the full story was. And guess what? We made contact with the assistance of our listeners with that very gentleman, and I spoke to him this morning. Alan Thornton, good morning to you.
Good morning, dear.
Well, we heard all sorts of interesting stories about you yesterday, and a lot of people telling us how we might contact you. How are you?
Oh, as best as can be, dear. How about you?
Not
all
so
right?
bad at all, thank you.
Good.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about your time in Rhinana? For example, why were you on open arrest?
Because I went absent without leave. I had a girlfriend and overstayed, you know. That was they called it a minor charge, and that's what it was. And it was around that time that we planned the move, you know, because I think a lot of people were totally fed up with the life at Rhinana.
Why were they fed up?
Oh, well, it's a desolate place it was in those days, and it's just a case of, well, I suppose you could say two things. Also, that I didn't think that the other ranks were all that well treated. We lived like dukes, and they had awful conditions. I saw it when I was orderly officer. They were terrible. I know they've changed now, but in those days they had a hard time.
And in terms of your plan to disappear or to escape or whatever in the plane, how did that all come about?
Well, in a short space of time, really. I thought it was the best way to go, and I'd been in touch with the German embassy. I don't know whether I'm saying the right thing now. I couldn't have said it years ago because it wouldn't have helped me one bit, being in the RAF, you know.
I wouldn't have thought so,
no. And, yes, I think, what is his name? Hempel, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one I spoke to.
And what did you discuss with him or agree with him?
That I was going to Jersey, which was then occupied, of course.
By the Germans?
Yeah.
And why were you doing that?
Oh, because, well, I just felt that it was the better side to be on, put it that way.
For winning prospects?
Well, not alone that, but for nationalistic prospects. I mean, the regime here is rather weird.
So tell me, you you went and you discussed matters in the German embassy. And then what was the plan?
The plan was that I would land at Jersey.
Well, first you'd have to get a plane.
Oh, yeah, well, that was easy enough. You know, you just went down to the hangar and got them to get the aircraft out. There was no problem there at all. None whatever. They did ask me where I was going, and I said something or other. It's so long ago now. It's 63 years, isn't it?
Right. So, and who went with you?
These three guys. McLaughlin, and I can't remember the other. McGovern, was it? And one other chap. Just trying to think now what his name was.
Was it Kelleher?
No. Kelleher. No, Kelleher was a lieutenant pilot in the Air Corps.
So you planned on stealing the plane, but I'm just curious to know, did you not think that might get you into some difficulties?
Well, no. I mean, once I got out of the country, how would it?
And had you mapped your flight paths and all of that?
Yes, I had indeed. And strangely, when we were discussing the route and so on, my Batman came in, call him that with respect, and he must have sussed it out, but I managed to get away anyway.
And then flying over England, you were brought down.
Yeah, well, I didn't cross England. I went down the coast of Cornwall, you see, and then it was a straight trip across to Jersey. No problem. It was only about half an hour away when they forced me down. Because, you see, I didn't have what's known as IFF, and I learned about that later when I joined the RAF. You switched it on when you were about to take off, and you could hear the hum for a while, and then it faded away. But they picked up your signal, you see, and they knew that you were friendly. It's a IFF, indicator, friend or foe.
But, I mean, you weren't friendly. You were heading for Jersey to fight with the Germans.
No, I didn't have that. That's why.
Oh, right.
See, they picked me up, and any aircraft that didn't have IFF was forced down or inspected, put it that way.
How did they force you down?
Oh, well, they just came up alongside and pointed down, you know, so I thought it was the better part of valor, you know.
And then what happened?
Well, when I got on the ground, they brought up a refueler, and I thought, well, I might as well have this. They said, do you want filling up? And I said, okay, go ahead. They didn't seem to realise where I was from. They thought I was Dutch, from a place called St. Marian, further up the coast. There was a Dutch squadron there, and the Irish insignia looked a bit like the Dutch one, you know.
So what happened next?
Oh, I was about to go off again, hopefully, but then suddenly they must have conned what was on, and I was placed, well, not under arrest, but a Flight Lieutenant Shackleton, son of the explorer, he took me under his wing, so to speak. He was my guard, really. And I spent several days there with him. Very interesting, too.
And did they charge you with anything?
Where, in England?
Yeah.
No.
So what happened next?
Well, the next thing was that the police escort took us all back to Holyhead, and then the Irish MPs picked me up there.
And what, were you court-martialed?
Oh, yes. Yes, I was court-martialed, sentenced to 18 months in Marlborough. And
Portlaoise.
Portlaoise, sorry.
Yeah.
And then I didn't serve all that long, from about February to June, I think. And then the Minister for Justice released me, because my father was private secretary to several of these people.
And that was why they released you early?
Yeah. Yeah, he worked it, I must say, for which I was truly grateful. But Oscar Traynor, who was Minister of Defence at the time, when my dad asked him, he said, well, no, because when we do, he'll join the RAF. Which was quite right, really.
Was Portlaoise very difficult?
No, it was, it was very disciplined and clean. That's the memory I have of it. Clean food, everything clean. But you had to obey, or, you'd have a rough time.
Right. I thought you had to do that in the army or in the Air Corps as well.
What?
Obey.
Oh, yes. Yes. I think I wasn't suited to that kind of life, really. I took up other people's causes, which was very bad. In fact, I know I was known as a ranker, which meant that you befriended the other ranks, and they frowned on that.
Officers are supposed to stick together?
Yeah.
Did you trick the other guys into going with you? Or
Oh no, they were quite willing. Absolutely.
So
100%.
okay, so you came back, you were court-martialed, you served time in Portlaoise.
Yeah.
Presumably it was known at this stage that you were trying to get to help the Germans. So how did you end up in the RAF?
Well, I applied, and I went to RAF College Cranwell, believe it or not, and I wore the Irish wings there, and with their permission.
But
you had been strange.
You had been going to fight with the Germans against the British.
Yes. It doesn't say much for intelligence, although I think that I was under suspicion. That's the only way to put it.
So you when you were in the RAF, you flew in Greece and Yugoslavia.
That's right, yeah, and Italy, of course, northern Italy.
So now you were fighting the side you were going to join, and presumably killing them.
I'm afraid so. I think the only thing you could call me, apart from an idiot, is soldier of fortune.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
And what about your own nationalism?
Oh, that was important. Very important.
Because nowadays, I mean, Ireland was supposed to have been neutral at the time.
Yeah.
There are many who think that given what was going on in Germany under the Nazis, that was a disgraceful role for us to take.
Oh,
to be neutral.
Oh, yes. Well, I don't believe that. I think that De Valera did the right thing. He saved the people from retaliation. I mean, if he'd opened the ports, for example, the Germans would have been over in no time to bomb, you know.
And tell me, after the war, when it was revealed what was happening, did you regret the notion that you might have fought for them?
Oh, yes, when I heard all about the camps and so on. It certainly was a terrible system. But you see, what you got to remember is that the Air Force in Germany, I met some of them, and they were just the same as us. They just wore the uniform, and, you know, if you were captured, and you were captured by escorted by the Luftwaffe people, you were treated well. If it was the German army, it was different, but they certainly respected you as a co-flyer. Do you know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
And it was a common policy. It was just a sort of a camaraderie that springs up between people who fly, even in wartime.
Now, you tell me a little bit about your experiences during the war. I mean, were you shot down yourself? Did you shoot down others?
Oh, well, no, it was mainly attacking transport and trains and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The German Air Force had moved away back. They were on the run, really. And we attacked a lot of targets on the ground, which was equally dangerous because they had very lethal 20mm and 40mm guns on their trains and everything else, you know. Made it a bit difficult, I tell you.
You were captured by the Serbians?
That's right. The Chetniks, as they were known. And they decided to use a form of torture, which was taking me out, I think it was about 3 mornings. I was going to be shot. And, of course, when they clicked the bloody guns, there were no bullets in there. And that was, you died each morning, you know. It left a mark on you.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm no brave man. And I think my clothes were stuck to my body with sweat.
And how did you get away from them?
Well, they let me go, actually. There's no explaining it. I did all the things I was supposed to do, give them my gun. He always carried a revolver as a pilot. And I also had 80, I think it was $80. We carried that in a special pack in case you came down somewhere. I gave them that money as well, and bits of chocolate and so on and so forth. And they just let me go.
You were a young man then, and it was war. And there always seems to be, certainly at the outset, a kind of an excitement about war.
Yeah, that's true.
Which perhaps afterwards one might regret. But anyway...
Yes, that's right. And I did.
How did you feel about shooting people?
Well, I'll tell you one. The first time I ever had contact with, well, it was supposed to be the enemy, and they were in horse-drawn carriages. It was on the borders of Albania, I think, and my number one gave me top cover, and I went down. Then I saw the horses. So I came back up and I called him up and said, well, I cannot shoot because the poor old horses will get it. And I think that sort of stuck with me, that you got the reputation of, well, being slightly a coward, if you like, not to have done it. But later on, of course, when things started to happen, and you just fired and never thought about the consequences.
Did you shoot German soldiers?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did indeed. And which I regret. But there you are.
Right. And was there some occasion when you were asked to have a go, I think the expression was, with a family?
Well, there was an occasion. You mean in attacking?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, not purposely, of course, but we went up and we refueled at a place called Zara, and then we went off into the borders of southern Austria, and there was this family. Well, I didn't know at the time, but the wing co was my number one, and he said, you know, go in, Paddy, and give it the works. And of course down I went, and it was only when I was firing and getting very close that I saw that it was a family with, well, I took it to be a family, piles of furniture on the truck. So that was a thing I always regretted. I destroyed them, of course.
And looking back on it now, are you still glad you did all of the things that you did, including stealing the plane in Rhinana?
Yeah, well, no, I'm not. I look back on it with deep regret. I don't think I was too bad a pilot, and had I stayed and kept my nose clean, I think I would have managed Aer Lingus, you know. But
and after the war, what happened?
Well, I was on the reserve, and I did some training of youngsters on tiger moths, you know. That was for about 12 years. And that was all, because I had a civilian occupation then. And that was the end of it.
And did you go on to marry, have a family?
Yeah, well, I married a wife in 1944, just before I went out to Italy for 43. And she died last year after 60-odd years.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Well, there you are. It happens. So, is that enough for you?
It is. It is, because your story was intriguing in that initially I think people were kind of surprised that anybody would have stolen a plane from our air corps during what was called the emergency.
Emergency, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gather anybody that was in Rhinana hated their time there.
Yeah, they didn't like it particularly. And of course there was also the faction of, shall I say, rivalry between the older pilots and the younger ones, that's a step above me, the ones who were my instructors and so on.
Why so?
Well, because the older pilots, to be quite honest with you, they got 8 shillings a day flying pay. And the ones above me, who were, trained at the car and so on and came through, they only got 5 shillings a day.
Right.
That's extra money. So they felt they had a grudge because they were doing all the flying and the older guys weren't doing any. So I think it was Oscar Traynor, I'm not quite sure now. He had us all out and inspected us and so on. And then he sent, just a minute, I'm starting to forget now, it's the EZ4 you do. Oh yes, and he sent all the older pilots over to collect some Hawker Hinds from Speak at Liverpool. And we were all out watching to see these old guys getting these aircraft down. And they did it quite well.
Did anybody ever complain about the difference in the money?
Oh yeah, that's what it was all about.
Right.
The older guys, as I say, they got 8 shillings a day, and in those days it amounted to something.
And did you ever raise it with the minister?
Oh no. I think I got blamed for a lot that I wasn't guilty of, if you follow me.
Were you a wild young man?
Well, I expect so.
Was there some question about a German strongman from Duffy Circus?
German strongman?
No, it was suggested that one of the reasons that you got into trouble was because the woman that you were dating or going out with had a relationship with the strongman from the circus.
Oh God, that's the first time I've heard that.
Well, there you go. You've obviously turned into a little bit of a myth yourself. Listen, thank you very, very much indeed for talking to us.
It's very nice to talk to you, dear.
It's all a very long time ago now.
Yes, it is. In fact, the memory is fading, Yes, it's over 60 years ago. A long, long time.
Well, nice to talk to you, and thank you for taking the call.
Thank you very much, madam.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, dear.
And that was Alan Thornton talking to him earlier this morning. Gosh, different times, but that thing about the glory of war, you should. I think it might be useful to consider the reflections of an older man afterwards on the inadvisability of going to war.